Welcome to episode number 153 of CXO Talk. I'm Michael Krigsman, and today we're talking about marketing technology and healthcare and regulated industries. I am here with Lauren Vargas, who is Chief Marketing Technologist at Aetna, and a special CXO Talk. We have industry analyst Esteban Kolsky, who is going to be my guest co-host for today. And gentlemen and ladies, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Lauren,
I'm going to say that having written this small special buzz here, I feel really good right now. Thank you.
I am delighted you feel good. Lauren, let's start with you. Briefly tell us about what you do at Aetna.
Sure. So I am the head of marketing technology and operations, although I can only claim that role for 2 months. Previous to becoming or coming into that position, I was the head of social community and content at Aetna for about 4.5 years. And I'm also currently a PhD student focusing on museum studies and digital behavior at the University of Leicester in England.
Fantastic. And Esteban, tell us about your areas of coverage as an industry analyst.
So I left high school last year, finally, with a GED. And,
okay, this is going exactly where we want
I have
it.
nothing to compete with.
Okay, so fast forwarding a little bit, you're now today an industry analyst, and what do you cover?
I cover customer strategies, but there's no way I can compete with Lawrence. I'm just going to say that, I've been an analyst for 15, 20 years. I've been in technology for 30 or so years, and it gets better every single year.
All right. I'm glad it gets better. So Esteban, this is going to be your show as the guest co-host. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and why don't you dive into questions for Lauren?
Okay. First, let me celebrate my excitement. Okay. So, hi, Lauren. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you. And you?
Good. So here's a funny thing. So when Michael asked me what I wanted to talk in a CXO talk, the first thing I thought about was marketing tech, mostly because I have no idea what it means, but it sounds really cool. So can you help us all a little bit by telling us what marketing tech is, but don't go really academic on that. I mean, what do you do? What's the point of all this marketing technology explosion in the last few years?
Well, let me comment on the fact that I think there are several different definitions of marketing technology and how people are going about it. The way that I'm looking at marketing technology is looking at all of the very specific technologies that marketing is responsible for. Where they are business owners or where they are business users, very heavy in authority, influence, and impact. And how do you take that set of technologies and not just become responsible for the function of the technology, but also know and be aware and drive the customer experience and understanding all of the different interactions, all of the data inputs and outputs. And when you're in a regulated industry like mine, you can't just think about the technology alone. You have to think about how the data is being used, why the data is being used. And it's a constant evolution. The guidelines are constantly changing as we.
But if you were to step away from regulated industries, what are we talking about? Data? How to use data better? I mean, marketers always use data for better or for worse, and worse is the key word here, not better. But they always thought that they knew how to use data. They knew what data is. What's the difference in the last few years?
Well, I think that you have a different set of people, I think, that are taking on the marketing technology role. And I think that I think that those people, either, they've had the responsibility or they're coming into this job like I am, they're looking at the marketing technology a bit differently. The fact that it is not a megaphone, it is not something where you just, pop data in and you think you understand the customers without really engaging with them or being in their community, in their environment, and the entire experience only happens in your sector. I think having people like myself who are coming in from a community role are thinking and working with legal compliance, architecture, IT, information security, in order to think about how do we craft the marketing technology experience, not just within our world, but within the life cycle of the customer. So you're thinking about everything from a holistic customer view with CRM to marketing automation, content management systems, looking at preference engines, and you're trying to combine them and try to fit, where all the puzzle pieces fit that are specific for your experience. I don't think you can take the marketing technology stack of any other company and just apply it to yours. You really have to understand and be aware of how the people are associating with you or not associating with you, and getting in there and engaging and being part of their experience versus your own.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, I was going to jump in. So marketing technology then needs to be wedded, very closely tied to the context of the specific organization and what's important to the customers and the life cycle of that particular set of customers.
And
nice mouthful, by the way.
And realizing that it's not linear, right? I mean, alongside everybody going into marketing technology, you've got everybody talking again about customer journeys and experiences, and we're thinking about it as it's going across, and only as it's interacting with our own technologies or our own data. And we really have to think about how the experience is happening in our, how they're interacting with us is in tandem with other experiences that they have within their life cycle. So we are in the same, you're in the same area, as, going to the food market and finding your favorite recipe, that type of, interaction, or the interaction that, from a healthcare perspective, like that person may have with their mother or father or aging parent, that type of thing. So we have to be aware that the life cycle, their life cycle, is how we start to organize our experiences with them.
So let me do something let's create a tweet, okay? Basically, this is serious. I'm going to give you 6 areas, okay?
Okay.
And you can allocate 100% of your time into these 6 areas. I'll give you the areas so you have a few seconds to think, and then I'll ask you. Areas are like, people, processes, technology, metrics, governance, and customers. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you have 100%. How do you allocate your time? How much time do you allocate to people, your people and the culture in the company? I'll give you time to think. You can't think on the spot. Come on.
So I don't necessarily. Well,
these are people, processes.
So I don't think that it can. So I think that you have to have like the people and the governance, the culture and the governance happening at the same time.
Good. So let's make it 5: people and governance, metrics, technology, processes, and customers. Right?
Yeah.
So people and governance. How much time do you allocate to people and governance?
At least 50%.
50.
50. I think that comes first. No.
And you put compliance as part of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is in the beginning too, because I think that this, or depending upon your industry, it might be seasonal. So I think in the beginning, especially if you haven't done this before, or you already think you have a marketing stack, but you have no governance or onboarding around it, and then you have to start from scratch, or you're not necessarily starting from scratch, but you're kind of, working backwards. So I think governance and people have to go hand in hand. And it's
was this for the 4.5 years you spent doing community at your company that you basically came with the compliance part?
Well, you know what's interesting is that the relationships that I built in my previous position are going to make this position that I hold now, I think, much easier, because I spent a good year on governance before anything was even launched at Aetna. And then I spent the next 3 years evolving that and bringing them into the process and thinking about it on a quarterly basis. And I think I can take that and speed up that process with my job that I hold now. So I think that's kind of a boon.
So now you have 50% and 4 categories left, right?
Okay.
So the next one is technology. How much of your time do you spend on technology?
I think technology comes last.
So
So
5%? 1%?
no, 10%, 15% maybe,
I mean, you
depending.
thought I was marketing technology, so I mean, at some point, technology's got to be there, right? But
Well, yes,
okay,
but I think it comes last in the decision process.
okay, processes, right?
Processes. I think that, well, I take
And
process.
there's no reason why it has a middle finger, just happened to be there.
I actually put processes in the governance bucket because at least in my role, I'm building the processes as I'm going through the governance with legal compliance.
But how about the influence you have in other processes within the company?
I think that goes hand in hand with well, because we're consolidating contracts, we're leveraging contracts in things that already exist, or the data pipelines are going into those areas that are maybe held by sales or service primarily. So I think that as we go through the governance, it's a matter of spending time with them there, making those decisions about the processes at that point in time and how we think that they're going to evolve, and establish a quarterly cadence. So like I'm really like parallel pathing some of these things. It's like you're building, designing, and flying the plane all at once.
So I'm going to leave metrics for last, and I'll tell you in a second why. But let's talk about customers. How much of your time are you spending either directly with customers or with the customer-facing stakeholders, or with some way to get into the customer's mind?
So
surveys, whatever.
From a marketing technologist point of view, I don't think that you should be the one on the front lines, but I think you should be aware of what is happening on the front lines and how you're connected in and how you're architecting or being part of the architecture process of how all of those technologies are created.
So how are you doing that?
So I'm interfacing with all of the different groups that have that community management responsibility, and asking questions about the data, and hoping to build my team so that we have user experience managers that are interfacing with member communications, community and social, and other local or hyper local, customer facing situations. I think we have to have not just the data, but the actual relationship with those groups so we can get firsthand knowledge. But is that part of our responsibility, that customer engagement? No. Do we put the technology in place to make some of that happen? Yes.
Okay.
But-
So let's talk about metrics.
I just want to jump in. So Lauren, then can you elaborate on the connection between marketing technology and what's actually going on with the customer? Because obviously they need to work together, those two things.
Well, I definitely think so. I think I think that at least the way that I'm looking at how to architect a marketing technology team is you have to have data specialists that are that don't overlap with your data scientists, but they need to understand exactly all the data inputs and outputs and what that means, how things are being used, how people are being communicated with. They, in tandem, work with the user experience managers who have that direct connection with member communications and your customer-facing relationships, community engagement. And then you have another set of folks who are the marketing technologists who are selecting. You might be specialists in various categories, 1 to 3 categories, and they can't make a decision. They can't strategically select or expand that particular category of technology or categories without the input of the user experience managers and the data specialists. Or if you don't have your team architected that way, think about who's responsible for those relationships today, and how can you start to build those relationships at the governance, at the process level, so that input, that inputs, or that's a direct input into what are your KPIs, what are your metrics, how do you focus on what the success rate is going to be. And the success, like I said, is not linear, right? You're looking at all these various different experiences. So I think you have multiple success factors, multiple ways to get at success, but you have to start to pinpoint those areas. So once you've got that governance in place, it can inform what your KPIs are going to be, what your diagnostics are going to be, and then you choose the technology. And then the technology evolves as you learn more. about the customer, how it comes up with the data specialist, their interface with the user managers, et cetera. So it's a cyclical relationship.
And this is why I left metrics for last, right? Because I mean, KPI correlation. I mean, we talk about this many times, but but I want to expand it from metrics to metrics and politics. You know, and I don't want to get you in trouble.
Interface with the user managers, et cetera.
But
It's a
essentially,
cyclical
they do go together
They
because you know,
do.
the justification, the metrics, the showing success, and all those things. They do bring certain levels of politics, especially in regulated industries and you know, bigger organizations, not just regulated industries. And I'm not picking in your company specifically. I'm just saying every large organization that I know, when somebody makes noise and somebody like, you know, succeeds, there's like, you know, 200 people behind trying to like, you know, oppose politically speaking the success. If you were to talk to a friend, first the question is how much of your time you spend in metrics, and you mentioned KPIs and all these things, and second, how much of those metrics actually are correlated to trying to avoid or trying to justify politically your position. And if you don't want to answer, I totally understand. I don't want to get you in hot water, but
no, I think I've, I have been in a customer-facing position for 15 years, and
shut up! You're not even old enough to have been doing this for 15 years.
I have.
Okay.
I'm older than I look, or maybe. You know, I kind of cut my teeth in the DoD, the Department of Defense, and you know, that's definitely a lot of politics right there, and it's not a cakewalk. And I learned a lot of tough lessons in my 20s and about how to navigate politics and how to satisfy for what they want versus what they need and what they're going to get, you know, managing those expectations. And I think that's part of the governance process and how you're looking at metrics. I think there is ultimately going to be that high level view, that executive view that you're going to have to prepare. But the way that I think that the technology has evolved, I think that especially like the job roles, how my career has developed, I'm looking at ways, you know, to tap into multiple different windows of data to satisfy the needs of the real-time needs of all the marketers that I serve. So that way I'm more nimble or able to address maybe the political concerns or the different views that need to be had from other executives or things that are influencing our industry.
We have.
I'm
sorry.
Tap dance around that one.
That was a good bounce. That was a good eggshell walking, by the way.
Yeah, you're doing well walking on the eggshells there, Lauren. We have a question from Twitter from Arsalan Khan, who asks, "Are you able to connect KPIs to technology performance metrics, SLAs?" That's interesting. It's an interesting question because we were talking earlier that in marketing, in MarTech, marketing technology, the technology piece itself is kind of at the end. And he's wondering, how do you link it back in to metrics and processes from a business standpoint?
I think that's a work in progress. At least that's been a work in progress for me for 15 years. I don't think there's any perfect way to do it. And I think, you know, it's all about how clean you make that breadcrumb trail. I think it's about the expectations that you set, the KPIs. I don't think you should bite off more than you can chew. The KPIs, you know, that I've been looking at over the years that are directly coming from what the business needs. And I'm tying that to the performance that I expect with the technology that I choose and putting together, you know, various maturity models and funding models. Is it perfect? You know, no, it's not. But I'm also, you know, setting expectations and trying to evolve as the technology evolves, as the expectations of what I or different teams can deliver. But I think that's a difficult because it's never the same in where you work. And there's no silver bullet. And I don't think anybody has the right answer. I think people trying to figure out the puzzle pieces. Never mind. I forgot.
Thank you.
I'm sitting
Thank
with
you.
Esteban.
Let's
That's
never
right.
say
We're
nobody-
with Esteban, and so don't say that nobody has the answer. Okay,
Nobody
Esteban.
hates to say that, but
What's
that's-
tell us, please tell us.
So let's change. I mean, that was an interesting exercise, I think, because I mean, I would have never thought that 50% of your time is spent in culture and governance. I mean, I understand compliance, regulated industries, right? But that's a significant chunk of time. And you know, let's take it one step further. I mean, what else do you think about, you know, you've been in different positions. You mentioned government, you mentioned, you know, regulated industries, and I know that you work elsewhere. You know, and I won't mention, it's up to you to say that, but you know, how different is regulated industries other than compliance from your perspective?
Yeah.
See, I mean, let me frame that better. We have this perspective that regulated industries are big dinosaurs that don't move, don't do anything. It's a pain to get anything accomplished, done, changed, or anything like that. I don't particularly, you know, share that view. I have seen some amazing innovations from regulated organizations, but I want to get your perspective on that as far as MarTech or even marketing is concerned.
You know, I think it's kind of the opposite. And I've gotten this, you know, I've had different types or kind of the same question asked of me several times. I think it's easier to work with regulated industries because you know what your sandbox is. So when you're, at least when you're developing your first round of governance, and what I've learned over the years is that, you know what spec, you know what your specs are, you know what your requirements are, you know what you can't exceed beyond. And when you have that in place, you can start to kind of push at the edges after you've developed some of those relationships with those key, you know, those key groups. And then you can get things to move quicker. I think that what I've done in my previous position here has set that stage so that it can go quicker in the marketing technology front. Are there still, you know, barriers? Yes, but you know what I've done is at every single job that I have taken over the years, I sit down with all of the stakeholders, all of those people that have information, not just stakeholders, but informational interviews. And I ask them, you know, what they expect, what are their needs, what are their challenges, what are their desires, what do I need to know, what are the rules of the road? And they give them to me. So I know exactly going in, I can start to frame, okay, here's phase 1 governance, here's phase 2, here's phase 3. This is how it's going to evolve. So while it's a big chunk, it sounds like a big chunk, you know, like I said, that's at the beginning, I think, as you're building things. I don't think that you're ever going to spend, at least in a regulated industry, less than 30% of your time on governance, because it constantly changes and you have to be aware of all the needs and the revolving people or personalities that might influence that. So, you know, politics and governance, right?
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who said that.
So, you know, I think, you know, at the end of the day, I wish I could spend a third of my time on governance, a third of my time, you know, on data and metrics, and a third of my time on technology selection. Is that how it actually works? No, there's seasonality. There are peaks and valleys of when I have to you know, when I can spend more time with the technology piece, like at the end of the year, or, you know, towards the end of the year, as you're planning for the next, that's when your technology time, you know, rises to peak levels. When you are looking at data and metrics, at least for us, you know, it's, you know, it revolves around the buying cycle, you know, open enrollment for healthcare, or, you know, there were different seasonalities in my governance positions. So you just have to be aware of that and be able to allow for your governance and for your processes and for your technology to adapt accordingly.
Does technology make governance easy? Okay, let me ask you a simpler question. Does technology make governance easy? Or put it another way, how much easier is governance because of technology?
Wait a second. Does you're asking, does technology make governance easier?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me rephrase that.
It's an interesting.
It's governance easy.
It's an interesting question, and not something that we think about very often as well.
I mean,
well,
it is part of your job, right? I mean, both governance and
oh yeah,
technology. So you're finding ways to make it easier, better.
but I don't. Well, at least now I don't think it's easy. I might answer that differently in a couple of months. Like I said, I'm getting my feet wet in
What have
this
you been the
particular.
last 2 months?
But what what have I done? What have I done with my time?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I think the deployment and like the once you have the processes in place, yes, the technology does start to bridge some of these processes that we've had to do manually in the past. But I think the sticky part is that there's more data. There is different ways that we can connect with the customer, different ways that you can shout at the customer or the prospect, and there, especially in our industry, there's a lot you have to think about with all that data flying around, and who has access, and the technologies themselves, how do they store it, that type of thing. So in some respects, I don't think it's made governance easier. I think it's made it, I don't know if it's made it more difficult, but it's made it a more lengthy, or no, not even more lengthy. I think I just have to bring more people into the mix and get more people involved to understand exactly
Wait.
how and what's being
So marketing technologies is talking about bringing more people instead of more technology.
more
That's what you're saying?
more relationships within the company, not more people into my company to do things.
So the right relationships make both A, governance, and B, technology adoption easier.
Oh yes, without a doubt.
So all you have to do is build good relationships.
You know what? I think it does. I think it makes a really big difference.
I am so screwed on that one.
So at the end of the day, the success of any technology-related program, whether it's marketing technology or any other type of technology, is going to come down to the relationships with people. I mean, I think it's the relationships with the people in terms of identifying what actually needs to be done and accomplished, and then relationships with the people in terms of the change management. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that change, the changing role of marketing and what that does to the organization, and the type of change management that might need to take place regarding marketing technology.
I think I kind of started to address that at the beginning. I started my career in public relations. I never thought in a million years that I would have this position today. I met Paul Greenberg when I had just turned 21, and I was a PR person.
You meant 12.
12. I was 12.
I
was this PR person who had a love for numbers, for data. And I wanted to learn everything I could possibly, get my hands on at that time around CRM. And I remember, just being on the periphery of those discussions, like, CRM, that technology that was coming in was the magic bullet, and we were going to have all these great relationships and connected data and all this other kind of stuff. And I don't think we've ever quite mastered that, but I think that we have made a lot of strides. And I think for my career and how it's evolved from PR to not screaming through a megaphone. So then all of a sudden the companies had to change, and that they realized they no longer had that controlled relationship, and that you had to start building quote unquote relationships with customers. What did relationship mean? And that's how I got into the position that I did around community management and DoD, and then working for Radian6 and social media monitoring, and understanding how the conversations were changing there at a social and community level, which led me to the position at Aetna, where I was brought in specifically to do governance, because the company recognized that these conversations were occurring, and they needed to make changes in order to respond and start engaging. And so now you have so many options of marketing technologies. The vendors are like 1,800 and growing, depending upon how you categorize the marketing landscape. So I think it's changed in that not only are we recognizing relationships, but we're architecting the marketing, the communications, and the technology around making sure that those relationships and the feedback of those relationships are quantified and qualified in a way that we can start making change within our companies.
Can I change your words a little bit?
Okay.
Thank you. You're talking about relationships, which is a very antiquated term, but earlier you talked about engagement, which I like a little bit more. There's some groundbreaking analysts written white papers and content about engagement from the last few years. They're mine, but that's okay. But seriously, I mean, we tend to make the mistake of replacing the word engagement for the word experience or the word relationship, right? But let's talk about engagement a little bit, because you mentioned a lot of things that actually hinder on internal engagement with other stakeholders, engagement with employees, as well as engagement with customers. How do you see engagement as being either crucial, pivotal, or just okay within your organization and your role?
In my current position?
Yeah. Or, I mean, we're going to talk about communities in the last 3 minutes that we have after we're done with this. So, I mean, you don't have to relate it to communities. I'll take care of that later. But, I mean, for marketing technology, is engagement one of the ultimate outcomes? Is that what you're seeking, is engagement? Or what is the outcome that you're seeking?
Seeking engagement at where it's appropriate, at the place, in that prospect or members.
No, I think that's for the politically correct answer.
No, that is at the end of the day, what we want, what I would like to see happen. Let me just clarify that. I look at engagement. This is kind of a tricky thing, because I think that in a lot of instances, a lot of companies, or like the industry itself, has kind of jumped over engagement. I think engagement was very hot a couple of years ago, and everybody wanted to create it, and everybody wanted to have these conversations. Now, just to get into some of these environments, if it's a very pay to play, so you go back to the megaphone approach, just to get them to engage in a valuable way with you. What does value mean? What does engagement mean? I think we're constantly breaking it apart and putting it back together again and adapting as necessary. And I think that we've kind of gone backwards with the pay to play.
And that's a great point. I mean, and I agree with that quite a bit. But so let me give you a little bit of a different framework, right? I mean, in this groundbreaking research done by one of the analysts that leading the field of experience and engagement, is a person, is a male. He said that engagement is an outcome of a job well done, and value is the metric for engagement, even though value cannot be measured specifically as more than a one-time basis. I mean, would you agree with those two pieces? I mean, do you think that engagement is the outcome? If you do your job right and you create good technology that the marketers that work with you utilize, do you think that the outcome of that is engagement, both internal within employees as well as external? That's the first
definitely. Yes, definitely.
Okay,
and that engagement has to be multiple times. A one-time interaction does not constitute engagement.
Well, unless you're me and you try to get married to the person after the first date, I agree with you.
So wait a second.
It tends to take longer than that.
How does engagement, when you talk about, I was going to say, how does engagement differ from relationship, from a marketing technology standpoint? Because when you talk about a relationship, it's all about the interaction over a period of time. And when you talk about
you're building your set of engagement, your engagement opportunities with that person.
Do I need to show you guys the slide, or you guys are okay talking about this?
I think we can talk about it, but seriously.
Okay. I'm just making sure that you're okay without my slides, that's all.
Well, of course we would love your slides. We love PowerPoint. And we don't think, for us, there's no such thing as death by PowerPoint either. But
to me, there is, actually, every time that I have to see.
But in the interest of time, what is the difference between relationship engagement in a practical sense?
I think engagement is, I think it's a set of interactions. And then that value or that number of interactions that you deem having some type of going through the steps of engage or interacting with your company on a regular basis would be a relationship. It has to be two-way conversation. Can't be the megaphone approach. But I think that goes back to connecting all of your data and then having the right, I think, set of KPIs or thinking that completely differently about the KPIs that we select and the diagnostics that we look at in order to clarify success. And I think that's speaking from how I've looked at metrics over the years and how it's influenced the job I've done.
Okay, so then let's talk about the second part of engagement, right? Value being the metric, basically,
right,
under which we measure engagement. I don't think that engagement is a metric. You can't say I'm 100% engaged or 20% engaged. Well, I mean, again, I guess unless you get engaged in the first date, but in all seriousness, so how do you create value? How do you my statement is you have to co-create value. Value changes at every interaction. Value is perceived differently by each stakeholder. So how do you actually focus on value as a metric or something to that effect so you can actually do something with that?
I think it's understanding, going back to the experiences, understanding exactly what is of importance to them and then how it ties with your business goals. Does it tie with your business goals? And where can you find common interaction points? And how do you get
Such
them
as,
to participate?
what do you mean by common interaction points?
Well, where there is a need or a want to have an interaction with your company, both what you want and what the prospect or the customer wants.
Yeah, and then, but that defines the value, right? I mean, what you need as a company is the value, and what the customer wants is the value that they see. And if you both get your cookie, for lack of a better word, then a win-win situation. That's when you generate value.
Correct.
And over the long run, by the way, here's a slide in case you need to refer to it. I'm not good at this, but over the long run, engagement is the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Basically, I'm so glad you agree with me. I don't have to belittle you anymore on that. So let's take the last topic. I mean, we have about the 5 or so minutes, and you mentioned communities a couple of times. You come from a communities background. Mm-hmm. You know me, so you know that I'm very big on communities. I think communities is girls don't rule the world. I'm sorry, but communities rule the world going forward. Without communities, we can't make this happen. I'm gonna have to talk to Beyonce about that. But I mean, let's talk about communities.
I'm not going to touch that comment, by the way.
Hey, communities could be made out of girls. I have no problem with that. It's just saying communities are much more powerful than a single person. And that's
definitely.
So I mean, how do you see your role as you came from the communities world? How do you see your role as fostering the continuation of communities within the organization?
So within the organization, or how the organization
whichever you
participates or pinpoints. So
you will define my question however best it suits you.
I think that we have to look at where our prospects or customers are, not necessarily where they fit on our this linear interaction or customer journey that we perceive. I look at what we have built on our website or social communities and other, and just the digital ecosystem overall as existing of these little hives or clusters of people having experiences. And I think that you have to kind of build your interaction points, build your opportunities around where they are already clustered. And that goes back to pinpointing the experiences in their life cycle and then understanding the technologies that are going to support that relationship, whether it is getting more people to engage, it's co-creating, that value that you speak of, that constant engagement. But I think we have to find people where they're at and find the experiences where they're already, those neighborhoods, those both online and offline interactions that they're already having, and start to build around that. So those are those communities already exist. We just have to like tap into that, but we have to be a trusted participant first.
My favorite phrase ever, trusted participant.
I think that's golden, right?
Like, when you look at technology for communities, you're not looking at how to like own and control communities, but rather
But tell us about trust. Trust is such an important term, and it's overused. So we have, as Esteban said, just a few minutes, but tell us about trust here.
Well, you have to go into the communities and you have to show them that you understand what they deem as value. So
when you say we, can you define we a little bit more? I'm sorry.
So
I think we have to go into the communities. Who has to go into the communities? The company or the people?
The people in the company.
Well, I'm not stupid. I'm just trying to amplify your answer.
the people
I know the answers. Otherwise, I wouldn't answer the question.
Your marketers, your frontline people, your sales. I mean, all of those people that interact with your customer. I think you all have to be on the same page, or look like you're playing for the same team, and think together about why you're entering these communities that already exist, and stop trying to build up a community, with this kind of build it and they will come approach. We've got to go to where the communities already exist and build our interaction points and the technology that supports that around it.
I don't have anything left to say at this point. I'm done. My education of you is complete. You're done. You're ready to go in the world, little Padawan.
Fly.
That's exactly the way that I see it. I mean, so let me finish this. We have a couple minutes, and then I think there were a couple questions left on Twitter, but I'll let Michael handle that if that's the case. Let's summarize all this stuff. I mean, we've been talking for about 40 minutes now, but we cover so much ground on so many different things, right? Let's summarize. Give me your top three takeaways of what it takes to be a good marketing tech executive.
You have to have good relationships across the company so that you can build a sound governance and process or processes that everybody buys into. Everybody not just buys into, everybody has skin in the game.
Okay, that's one. Number two, what's the second thing that you have to do to be a good marketing tech executive? Let's put in technology. I mean, that's about relationship. How about technology? What do you need to do or know or say about technology?
You need to select your technology based on what you have found in your user experience research, in combination with what your data or primary, secondary data tells you. And you have to be able to act on that. So don't select the technology first. Allow the data, the user experience to inform your technology selection.
So let me bring this a little bit, and I mean no disrespect in this, but there's some slide going around with like 1,800, 2,000 plus vendors divided into like something like 26 different technology fields, and somebody says that's the world of marketing tech. Is that really the world of marketing tech, or that's the world of like vendors who want to get into marketing tech and don't know how to get in?
That's the world of vendors wanting to get into marketing tech. I don't think that I know what you're talking about. It's the super graphic and
right. Scott Brinker's super graphic.
Right. And I think that's wonderful to kind of get an understanding of what is out there. But do you have to have all of that as part of your marketing stack? I don't think so. It depends upon your organization. It depends upon the needs of your community. It depends upon your user experience to inform what technologies or what combination of technologies that you need.
And for the record, Scott does a wonderful job, and he never said that that's what everybody needs to have. So I don't want to put words in his mouth, right? I'm just referring to it because most people probably have seen it by now. Mm-hmm. It's a very busy slide. So then, you pick the technology based on the user experience. You build great relationships with other people in the organization. You understand their needs, understand the wants from the customers. You put it all together, and then summary again. What's the metric?
It's the value of the engagement that you set that's going out in the communities and establishing those that value exchange.
So basically, the words that I heard you say that matter the most for marketing tech are relationships, customer experience, and value.
Yes.
Michael, back to you.
Relationships, customer success, and value.
That's
Relationships, customer success, and value. I
Well,
guess that.
customer experience, but I let you screw it up the first time, not the second time.
Say it one more time. Tell me where I screwed it up.
Customer experience and value.
Relationship, customer experience, and value. Why not
That's the
customer
world of marketing
success?
tech.
Because if you have your engagement right, or you're going to have your customer success. And that's actually the thing that matters, isn't it?
I think success is. I don't like success. It makes
She said experience. I said experience. You want to throw
Okay,
success.
experience. We don't. All
No,
right, we
I'm
don't.
sure you have an agenda there. That's fine with me.
Yes,
let's
of
keep it
course.
clean and family oriented.
This is a family-oriented show. Okay, well, we are out of time. This has been a very, very interesting experience talking about marketing technology with Lauren Vargas, who is the Chief Marketing Technologist at Aetna, and my guest co-host for this episode, which has been Esteban Kolsky, who is one of the top analysts, industry analysts in this field. And so Esteban and Lauren, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure as always.
Everybody, this is always a lot of fun. I want to thank Livestream for their support, and we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Thank you. Bye-bye.